Welcome to our latest webinar. Today's webinar is all about direct-to-consumer and the direct-to-consumer retail landscape. We've got a great session lined up for you today. My name is Maurice and I'm the CEO of We Are Family here in the UK. And I am part of a double act, if you like, a webinar double act, an Anton Decker or Laurel and Hardy of the webinar world. And I'm joined by my Spanish colleague, Borja.
Thanks, Mo. Borja here. I'm the CEO at We Are Family here in Iberia, here at our streaming room. It's actually 2 years ago almost to the day when we did a session on the retail space back in May of 2020, when everyone was doing webinars and wondering what on earth the pandemic was going to mean to the retail space. So today we are, however, being a bit more focused on looking specifically at the direct-to-consumer landscape.
Yeah, that's right. Just some housekeeping, I guess, before we start. We're recording these sessions and so that we can release them onto our YouTube channel afterwards. So the second it's finished, we'll upload those to the channel and we'll share those links around so that for those who couldn't join us live today, there's an opportunity to watch it back and please feel free to share it amongst your colleagues. The session will take about 45 minutes, give or take. We've got a lot to cover today, so hopefully we won't go over. We're going to keep this document up on the screen. This kind of shows us where we are in the process and what areas we're talking about. If you'd rather see our lovely faces rather than this big screen, then if you obviously click on the window there, then we become big and these words become small. So it's up to you how you want to view this presentation. If you've got any questions, just add them to the Q&A tab at the bottom. That should give you some opportunities to ask questions. I'll try and field those at the right moments as and when it feels right. If not, then I'll save them to the end. Yeah, I guess probably next thing to do is introduce our panelists.
Sure. As always, we have an incredible set of panelists joining us today for our roundtable discussion. So first, we have Amy Holden, founder and director of World Alive Group, the developers of children's brands such as Aqua Dragons, Soulmates, Kids Yoga and Mindfulness, and EarthForAll, an innovative and award-winning toy company that is 10 years old this year. Hello, Amy. Welcome.
Hi, everybody.
Maybe you're on mute.
Hello there.
I'm on mute. No, it says I'm not on mute. Can you hear me?
You're good, yeah.
Okay, great.
And yeah, it was the birthday party for Aqua Dragons last night as well, which was quite good fun, and the cocktails were delicious. Thank you. Next up, we have Ryan. So Ryan Gorman is head of global retail and consumer product marketing at Moonbug. Moonbug, for those of you who don't know, I'm sure everybody does, but Moonbug is home to some of the biggest kids' TV shows on the planet, from CoComelon and Little Angel through to Blippi and Little Baby Bum and many more. I think it's fair to say that they're one of the most exciting, forward-thinking, innovative, disruptive forces in the children's media space. So it's great to have Ryan with us today. So thank you, Ryan, and welcome.
Hi, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Good to see you all. Looking forward to today.
And last by no means least, we have Nick Christensen. Nick has over 15 years of digital experience, having created different services and departments within 3-part Reply to serve B2C, direct-to-consumer, and marketplaces. So nothing happens on Amazon without Nick knowing what about it. Hi, Nick. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, thanks for joining us today.
Great. Well, as I say, we've got a properly action-packed survey, an action-packed session for us today, covering lots of different areas. As I say, we'll hopefully get through it all in 45 minutes, but we're going to be looking at all ends of the scale. Nick is going to talk us through some data that he's got through from Amazon and other sources, talk us through that landscape. We're going to get Amy and Ryan talking about their experience of the direct-to-consumer landscape, what's working for them, what's not working for them, and how they work with some of their partners. We've got some hints and tips about successfully launching platforms, pros and cons of running your own web store. So lots of really juicy stuff to get into. Hopefully today it will be jam-packed full of actionable insights for you guys to be able to take away something and be able to action on your own end. So without probably any further ado, we'll get stuck straight into the stats. So Nick, please talk us through your slides. We've got them here and we can talk us through them.
Great, thanks for the introduction, guys. So yeah, there's a few slides which I'm going to take you guys through today, which is really focused on some of the data that we have on the Amazon platform, the consumer, their purchasing behavior, as well as some kind of wider data as well in terms of, between Amazon and other retailers, how this is changing over time. We usually like to kick off with this stat because it's so important that, we see Amazon as a product discovery engine as opposed to a regular search engine. 80% of the Amazon's consumers go onto the platform to actually discover new brands. So we see that, this is what there is to play for, and to be able to, reach these consumers, it's really about understanding, I suppose, their behavior, what they're looking for, what they're buying, what price points they're buying at, and any trends, as we know that, the trends are changing over time. So one of the most important pieces of data we can get out of the Amazon platform is actually the search queries that consumers are using on the platform at any given time. And one of the big questions that has been asked to us over COVID is that, with the influx of new consumers using the Amazon platform, is this a new normal? Or are we actually seeing that was a COVID impact and things are, shift back to previous, previous behavior once bricks and mortars open up? And what we're seeing with this data, and this is actually looking at over 300,000 different search terms that we've modeled this and aggregated across a lot of different categories. But what we're seeing here is actually, we are seeing that this is the new normal. We are seeing that the consumer that has gone onto Amazon over the COVID period are actually, searching and buying products in quite similar categories. We can see here that toys and games are in the top 5 categories in Amazon, and actually year on year, it's pretty much like for like in terms of the amount of consumers on the platform. A couple other interesting bits here is that we know that over COVID, fashion took quite a big hit. I think we're on Zoom quite often, below the waist, and probably a lot of loungewear and pajamas. But over the last year, we have seen fashion growing really quickly on the Amazon platform. So in terms of some wider numbers that we're seeing as well, and just how important, I suppose, Amazon is as a platform for toys and games. We can see that 44% of toy shoppers research their toys on Amazon. So even if you're not on there, having a presence on there is so key to be able to develop it and grow the brands. We're seeing that within the toy category, toy shoppers are 3 times more likely to buy toys as gifts. So we can see that over Q4 and some of the key events throughout the year that you're always thinking about the consumer as a gift buyer, being able to reach those through different targeting methods that we have on the platform. And toys and games it is the 5th largest category on the platform. And again, this is another source of data that we do get on the platform. And when we look at a couple of slides earlier about the different categories and how that's changing over time, what we can do is kind of deep dive further into those categories and see, what are the top terms that consumers are typing in when they're going to the platform and looking for toys. And what we can see here is that half of the top 5 are new, or half of the top 5 are different. So when you look at these search terms, what you want to use, how you want to make this actionable is just to understand where the trends are happening, to be able to, potentially, if you're not these brands, to target these brands or to look at any other wider trends that can be beneficial to support some of your wider tactical activity. So this is based on UK data. Lego and board games are 1 and 2, followed by Barbie, but a couple of new ones, Squishmallows, LOL toys, and baby toys as well that have moved into the top 10. In the US, it's quite interesting, similar type of data. About half of the searches are new into the top 10. And where this is interesting, I know that my kids have it, is Pop It. It did really well over in the US. I've got them all over the house, moved up almost 362 positions. We're seeing a couple of new ones in here as well, such as horse toys in general and retro toys that are moving to the top 10. But the Amazon consumer is changing the way they're searching, and looking at these searches just gives brands a different opportunity to reach some of these different search areas. So based on those searches, what we now then look at is what consumers are actually buying on the platform. And we do manage clients across a lot of different markets, and we understand that strategically you want to make sure that you are optimizing and prioritizing products across those different markets based on what consumers are actually buying. And just an example of how different the markets are, we can actually see between the UK and the US, building construction, and that's huge. But actually, baby and toddler toys, take a bigger share of the sales in the US, whereas in the UK we're seeing electronic toys within the top 3. But this is the type of data that we do monitor, because I think that what we want to make sure of is, when we're helping our clients, we're helping sellers on the platform, is what's the size of the pie and what are the key categories that we need to really benchmark and grow in, as those are the largest categories for volume and growth. What we also like to look at when we look at all the different categories is at the price points that consumers are actually purchasing products. And this is based on, I suppose, the top 100 best sellers across the different categories. Because I know in the past, even over the last couple of years, there's been quite a big shift in terms of how we think about Amazon as a platform. And I know in the past it was really about pricing, promotion, and it's about being able to reach consumers at the lower price points. But what we're seeing more recently over the platform is that actually consumers are going to the platform and they are purchasing products at higher price points. And how we use this data is that when we're looking at driving incremental sales and new customers on the platform, what's the price point so we're actually able to drive those new customers more effectively, and then having different strategies to cross-sell and upsell and create loyalty within the brand. But what this chart is showing that actually some differences between the US and the UK as well, with higher price points being purchased in the US than the UK across all the different toy categories. And who's winning? Who's winning across toys and games across the US and the UK? What we see here is that, well, actually what's interesting is normally when we look at the top 10 brands across any categories, whether it's toys and games or other categories, they do account for probably anywhere between 50 to 80% of the sales. But within the toy category, the top 10 brands are accounting for 50% of the sales, which means that there's actually an opportunity there, even if you're not an established brand, if you're a challenger brand, to understand how the Amazon platform works, understand the algorithm, understand the consumer, to be able to get in and get as part of all these different categories. It is a competitive category. There are over 750 different toy brands that are generating sales across all these different categories. But it does show that there is a continued opportunity to win on Amazon. Big question everybody's asking and planning for is that the CPCs have been increasing. I think this is probably one of the biggest talking points over the last few months, with the cost of advertising increasing over the last few years. I know a little bit of this can be taken with a pinch of salt as well, because we do know that over last year, a lot of supply issues, meaning that there were less advertiser participants within the auction. So it's likely that last year CPCs should have been higher had everybody had their stock in place and were advertising across all the different terms and products. But even though Amazon's CPCs are growing, it's still 44% cheaper than Meta and Google. This data is taken as a cross-section of a lot of the different toy brands we work with across the European market, so it just gives an indication of what's happening in terms of the trends over the last 2-3 years. So what we also wanted to look at here is not just Amazon as a platform, but how consumers are searching for places to buy toys within the UK and the US. So this data is taken from Google Trends. And what we've done is we've taken the top terms across all of these different stores to see how this is changing over time. What we're seeing here is that Amazon does have steady growth over the last few years. We can see in the UK, Smith's Toys were the biggest benefactor out of the Toys R Us situation. But Smith's Toys and Amazon in the UK have been growing at the expense of Tesco's and Asda. In the US, Amazon continues to grow as well, whereas Walmart and Target were declining in search interest on Google. And that was my final slide. So I think just in summary, I think a lot of that data is really useful for prioritizing how you I suppose operate on the platform, where you focus. What are the key areas to be able to win within the Amazon platform.
Definitely, insights are a must in our business. Thank you so much, Nick. Thank you so much. Amy, coming to you now, what was the driving factor for the Aqua Dragons decided to get into the D2C space, and what impact this move have on sales and your business dynamic?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, as a rule, we have been a brand where we consider ourselves the developers and not necessarily the experts in distribution. So we've always worked on a distribution model, which means we prepare the product, we prepare, for example, the TV spot for every launch, and the sort of top line communication, never retail communication, just brand kind of communication. So whether it's illustrations, text, that level, but not usually the kind of communication that would be directed directly to the consumer. And we still continue to support the distribution model in many of the markets that we're working in, and we're happy with that. But we did have to make like a crazy kind of about turn in the business just for survival during the pandemic. So our traditional channels were completely closed down. We didn't have a choice. We were like, okay, we're going to sit it out, or are we going to do something dynamic? I mean, we're a small dynamic team. We should be able to do this and do like a kind of about turn. And so what we had to do was work out how can we reach the consumer directly. It's, of course, we're not experts in that area traditionally. So we counted on We Are Family. We also took an in-house team of people to do social media and so on, and managed to do that. And the impact was crazy, you know. It was like our sales are exponential. And so for people out there who have a brand or just want to know about it, you know, usually in the distribution model, you will have like some territories which are doing very well because you've got an exclusive partner, they're doing TV advertising, they're taking care of all the local communication. We give them a factory price, and then they're the experts in the market, and they handle that. When it comes to direct to the consumer, you know, suddenly it becomes our responsibility. So we need to have a whole new set of skills to do it. So within the team itself, we need to have serious changes. We needed to have experts help us with strategy, internal people on the team to be able to, you know, do all that work, the consumer communication. But the result of that for us has been fantastic. So what we don't have now is like patchy lagoons across Europe where we might have somebody doing really well in one country and then nobody in the next. We can actually, for example, with Amazon, since we've been talking a lot about Amazon, we can reach the whole, what they call pan-European or continental Europe, all the way up to the border with Russia, just kind of having one client, or it's different platforms, but essentially it's one way of working with Amazon. So within the team, it's pretty crazy. We've had to have, you know, less sales staff, more logistics staff, more people who know about managing all the online information. So the operations are completely different between one kind of business to another.
Mo, maybe you're mute.
Sorry. Thank you. Thank you, Amy. Ryan, coming to you. So obviously, Moonbug are similar but different, I guess. They've similar audience as far as it's the kids and family audience, but very different in your overall retail strategy. You've approached things very differently. I was wondering if you could talk us through how D2C, what role D2C plays in your business structure and your kind of overall retail strategy, I guess.
Yeah, thanks. It's a good question. And what I would share is that, you know, similar to Amy, I don't think we originally, as a company, when we set out on this journey together, anticipated being D2C experts or having any subject matter experts in the D2C space within our company. We sort of fell into it when we purchased and acquired the CoComelon and Blippi brands, because those brands had been operating their own D2C channel. So we kind of were forced with a decision of, do we maintain or do we exit that business? And I would say that, you know, took a really hard look at it. And while it might not be what is in our core wheelhouse in terms of a traditional licensing and retail business, it's hard to ignore the numbers and the data you get from direct feedback from the consumer. So being able to be that much closer to the consumer and hearing their thoughts and opinions on your products and your brands that you license out, and being able to have that direct connection with them is priceless. And regardless of the revenues that we're generating out of it, it to me becomes just a critical research component of being able to understand the consumer landscape and what they're looking for in toy product, apparel product, from our brands in particular, what they want us to stand for, etc.
Thanks, Ryan. Amy, coming back to you, what are the hints and tips you have for setting up a store on Amazon? And what are the watch outs for people looking at moving into this space?
Okay, this is a hot topic. Our relationship with Amazon is like a love-hate relationship, and I believe a lot of people have a similar kind of experience. So, Nick just talked to us about the stats, and if you look at those stats, you have to understand that if you really want to have a successful direct-to-consumer business, you have to be on Amazon. Amazon is like where the consumers are. And just to give you an example of that, for example, we have both our Shopify sites where we are like, not necessarily out to compete with the retailers that we want to support, but we do have to have a showcase, like a flagship store that has everything for our brand available. So we have to, have it available. And even though we have complete information, special deals, whatever you want, people will still prefer to go through with their purchase of our brand on Amazon. So whether that's because of Prime, or they think they might get a better deal on returns if they need to return, probably Prime, that's what they're up for. So the clicks and the consumers are there. And with regards to setting up, we were on Amazon for the first maybe 5 years. We didn't take it too seriously. We had our listings updated. We were slowly gaining reviews, and it was going well. But at one point, I said, we need to take this a bit more serious. They're taking more and more of the market. And at that point, we had to sit down and we wrote an Amazon strategy. So that's the point where you say, we're going to assign a staff member, we're going to assign a budget, we're going to do all of the courses that Amazon offer us, we're going to hire a consultant who's an Amazon expert, and we're going to basically learn all the tricks. And then when we did that, you kind of get into bed with Amazon, and then the sales just go exponential. So, and it really does work. I mean, it's all these small, you can get 5% more sales if you do that, but then if you do this, you can get another, and then in the end, it explodes. So what happens if you push hard and go up the ranking in Amazon, it continues to share that product with, everybody that's looking at the category. And once you get up the top of the ranking, it's just a self-fulfilling success story. You can bring in more SKUs, and they're associated with the brand and so on. So, and that side, it's absolutely important. It's, fantastic for us. It's a significant portion of our billings. On the con side of it, so the not so positive side of it, there are some serious problems with Amazon, and I'm really concerned about the future of how Amazon is kind of controlled by AI. So you can have an incident that just you can raise a ticket for, but it just doesn't get resolved because you get an AI answer that really doesn't resolve it. You can't have an account manager or a dedicated account manager. You can, at times you might have somebody to speak to, but then it's constantly changing. There's very frustrating things that they need to work on. And I think one of them is, just to give you an example, it might just sound like a small frustration, but it's not. In the toy business, it's about innovation. Everything's a campaign. Every new year we bring out new products. But the way that Amazon works is completely different. It's about slowly, or as fast as you can, to get up the ranking. Once you're at the top of the ranking, you'll be getting blasted with loads of orders from Amazon, and we ship to all the pan-European sites. So we, Monday and Wednesday, we'll get a big screen full of orders, And if we want to launch something new, that doesn't work with Amazon, because what they want is this. So if you want to discontinue this, but you want to do this campaign and you're spending money on television or whatever other marketing because you want to work with this, there isn't a way to communicate that with Amazon, because Amazon is not really human. So that's the main problem, I think, with Amazon and all of these kind of businesses that are heavily AI in the future. I think we need to find a balance before the machines drive us crazy. But at the same time, as I said, it's a love-hate relationship. We can't do without them. So we're trying to learn how to work with the machines.
Amy, how much do you think that you've needed to change? I mean, have you got to the point where you're changing a product strategy or a release or a campaign strategy that's kind of being driven by these limitations that Amazon are putting on you?
Absolutely. We have one core brand within our brands. We have like a core story or a range that we would normally continue to kind of turn over. And this has been so successful on Amazon, we just can't stop. So it's like we have to do one thing for the traditional toy stores that want to have like novelty every year. To go to a trade fair, it's very important to be able to call your customers in and to talk about what's new. And on the other hand, your business with Amazon is growing based on, like, if you have a good product and it has good quality and it's got good reviews and you're delivering on time, Amazon, that's where they're going to back you, and they're just going to keep ordering more and more. So it's like we've got an Amazon strategy which literally works almost like a separate department within the company. Even the logistics have their particular way of doing things, and then everything else. So it's kind of crazy, but yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Ryan, coming to you, because obviously you're a very different business, as I mentioned before. So I guess kind of following off from that as far as the kind of hints and tips and structure and stuff like that. But I'm particularly interested because, again, you're set up very differently. You've got a suite of brands, you've got licensees who do a lot of that stuff for you. You've got quite complicated relationships in place already with retailers and all this kind of stuff. So how does the D2C fit with some of those more kind of traditional relationships which you've built up in place? And how do you make sure that you don't cannibalize the sales or make some of the, how do you manage some of that conflict that might exist when you go D2C?
Yeah, I think, for us, it's about augmenting the assortment and making sure that there's a reason why the assortment is somewhat differentiated from what another channel might be offering. So we intend to always look at a mainline segment of the business when we work with our licensees on development, making sure that there's something that everybody's going to carry. Those are going to be the key supported items, but then building a differentiated assortment by channel, whether that be for D2C, whether that be for mass retail, or more of a specialty player. We're always looking to make sure that we're working with our partners to maximize how they develop their lines for channel management purposes. And then I would also say that for us, it's about providing them with the right playbook and assets to really bring our brand to life through the channels that they manage. So we want to make sure that when our brands show up, whether that be on our D2C channels, whether that be on the Amazon channels or their own storefronts, that there is some consistency to how we appear across the marketplace. And we work really, really closely with all of our licensees to make sure that they have that playbook and best practices from us to execute upon.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Amy, coming back to you again, you also have a web store on your site where you sell directly to customers. Please talk us through that, and what are the pros and cons of having an own web store?
So when we got into having our own web store, obviously a long time ago, everybody has at least a web presence now. We originally had to go and get programmers to do it. It was kind of like pre-Shopify times, and that was expensive, and things would break down kind of regularly. It was like every 2 or 3 years you'd have to kind of program the whole thing again, which is frustrating for us. And when Shopify came out or became, the norm, which is I think it's now the #1 kind of site where you can configure your own web store. I actually set up my own website, actually 3. We have 4 websites, one for each brand, and then we have like an umbrella kind of website. And I was able to set them up myself because they're based on just being able to configure things, and you can get all these apps that just kind of connect with it, and they provide you the ability to do really sophisticated stuff, whether it's managing reviews, apps that will track follow up with consumers with automatic emails to, if someone's kind of left the process during the cart or whatever, just all sorts of fantastic stuff. It would cost an absolute fortune to program and have it working properly yourself. So I thought that was just, opening a whole new world for us to be able to do that ourselves. So it was less expensive. And over time, what we have realized is that there are some cons to that as well. If you use one of these kind of sites, which is like a kind of shopping site, Shopify has, I think, a couple of million stores on it. The SEO is not quite as effective as if it's outside of that kind of technical area. I don't know a good technical way to explain that, but SEO is a little bit harder, and that means that you need to use you need to pay more basically to get customers to come to you. You need to get every single customer needs to be, brought in, and they don't just kind of stumble on the store. The internet isn't as democratic as it looks anymore. We've got sort of like toll booths everywhere. We need to pay Google, we need to pay Facebook, we need to pay Instagram, TikTok, whoever to get people in. So it has its pros and cons in that sense. I'm still pretty happy with Shopify, and I do recommend it because I think it's great especially for smaller people, like smaller brands who are starting. It's such a good operation. They can get something that looks incredibly professional for a reasonably low price, and you can pay it monthly, so you don't have this big, pay 10 grand now and so on. So I'm still absolutely positive about it. But obviously now you can have your web presence, you can create your own shop within Etsy, you can create your own shop within Amazon, and that's really important too. So you have to it's just got more complicated as the years have gone on to stay up to date with all the different things that need to be done. And it's great to count on people and companies that can come in and advise on that as well. I definitely recommend every possibility I get to say work with experts and don't try and do it all yourself. So it's good to have Shopify, but it's good to get some people in there to help you with it as well.
Thanks, Sam. Ryan, obviously, not obviously, but Moonbug has a store as well. I mean, do you want to is there anything you want to add to that, or anything from your experience on the pros and cons of having a web store?
Obviously the pros, as I had stated a little bit earlier, was just being able to have that direct feedback from the consumer. I think the biggest con is it's really challenging to run your own store, and supply chain issues that were very prevalent over the last year really become exacerbated within a small storefront option, because you don't have, you're working with licensees on purchasing products back from them and putting them onto the site, and you don't have the same sell-through as these larger retailers, and therefore you have spotty trends of inventory. So we felt it in a big way last year, and we had some dissatisfied customers as a result of that, and had to spend a lot on just customer retention because of that, and making sure we were doing what was right to resolve issues. And I think that's probably the biggest con in my book is just having to take away from maybe what your core business model is as a licensee, or a licensor rather, and focus on becoming a retailer. And it's two totally different business models, right?
Thanks, Ryan. And finally, Nick, what are the best ways to drive traffic to your D2C retail stores? There's been a lot of talk about how micro-targeting is going to get harder with the removal of cookies and other tracking codes. So are you seeing these, and how can companies still drive ROI?
Sorry, is this in terms of the store on Amazon, or just in terms of their store off Amazon?
I'd say Either, but probably specifically, let's go with Amazon to start with, and let's see if we've got time to cover the other bits.
Yeah, so look, I think in terms of driving customers to your store on Amazon have ad formats that allow you to do that directly through sponsored brands, through sponsored brand videos, which is probably the best way to do that. I mean, there's a lot of metrics that you can get into the platform about how your store is performing, where your traffic is coming from. You know, a lot of our clients are actually driving traffic through other channels, through social, using attribution to be able to work out, you know, what's the value of the different traffic that they are driving through the store. I know Amazon are experimenting at the moment with showing the storefront on regular search result pages. I know they're doing that a lot more in the US at the moment, where they understand that the consumer who is searching is not necessarily ready to buy. They're in a discovery phase where, you know, showing a store that is relevant to that search term is becoming a lot more common out there. But on Amazon, definitely the ad formats are the quickest and best way to drive consumers to your store. And then from there, you can start to truly test what's working across your store, what are, you know, how you merchandise and how you engage those consumers and what they do next on the back of that.
Amy, from your perspective, love to know a little bit more, because obviously you've done both the kind of the paid for piece that Nick talked about there, but also the organic piece and the kind of influencery piece. Can you talk us through that a little bit and kind of how that worked for you and the sorts of things that you did there?
I was hoping you were going to ask me that, because I have a lot to say on this topic. What's really different about the direct-to-consumer is that you can track it, right? So when we would originally, not that we did a whole lot of advertising, because as I said, we're just brand focused, but whenever we did do advertising, it would kind of indirectly benefit. We couldn't really, you know, if you were doing something like a TV ad and a magazine, you didn't know where the sales were coming from. So with the online and the direct-to-consumer, it's kind of trackable. So if you work with, for example, an influencer, and then they have some kind of a link or a code, and that goes, even if it comes back through Amazon or whether it comes back through Shopify, you know, like exactly where it came from. So you know the money that you're spending, exactly what's working and what's not working. So what's really good about that is that when you find that you've got a positive return on investment, you can just go exponential. So you could say, okay, let's spend 100 euros on these 3 different things. And if we find one can make us X amount of sales and that's profitable, let's take that 100, let's make it 200, let's make it 500, let's make it 1,000. And at some point, you know, it doesn't go forever. You get to a point where you've kind of maxed out, or you've saturated, or there's only so many people in your core market, and you can spend that every day and continue to get really good sales. So that's absolutely amazing. And that's what I kind of love about the direct-to-consumer channel, that you have this extra control and it's so dynamic. And the other thing I wanted to say, because I was just writing my list down, I don't know if this is for everybody, but what I found is obviously when you're talking about within Amazon, I think Nick said that the cost per click on Amazon was still 44% cheaper or less, more economical than the other main channels. For us, it's even better than that. It's Amazon is by far the most economical, and I'm talking about, you know, 300% difference between the amount of clicks you need to pay on Amazon to get a sale compared to, for example, Facebook. Instagram, we basically don't make any money out of them. We've tried many different strategies and it's not profitable for us. Amazon is extremely profitable, and that working in combination with influencers is you know, fantastic. So if we have 2 minutes more, I want to explain this case study. Yes, Maurice knows because he was a strategist for it, but we did an Aqua Dragons challenge. And that was an organic campaign. So now we're talking about like not spending money on advertising, but working with a small set of influencers. We made a competition, we put stickers on our products, and we asked all of our consumers to take videos of their Aqua Dragons. So if you don't know what Aqua Dragons are, they are little, basically crustaceans that are alive. We sell them in a kind of like a freeze-dried egg format. And kids get a tank, they put the eggs in, they hatch them, and they see them grow and they see the life cycle. So this lends itself really well to organic promotion. And we work with some influencers to get this Aqua Dragons challenge running. And once it started running, it just ran by itself, because of course everybody wanted to win the challenge. So then they put up their video, and then other people put up their videos, and we ended up doing more than 300 million visualizations on TikTok. And we couldn't even measure, YouTube is harder to measure because you don't get a counter, but we know we did many millions of views there too. And that drove the sales, literally went, because it's that online, people are seeing the videos online and they're kind of clicking through or doing the search directly afterwards and purchasing on Amazon. And we could literally see how, as the TikTok campaign progressed and as the views were going up on TikTok, the sales were going up on Amazon. It was totally in correlation. And so yes, for us, it does depend on your product. If you're selling, I don't know, coffee beans, it's maybe difficult to viralize. If you have a product that lends itself well to organic viral marketing, then that is absolutely the way to go. And for us, it's been fantastic. So, and if you don't have that opportunity, I still say that the most economical online kind of retail communication that we've been able to do is definitely Amazon. And I'd love to hear if that's everybody else's experience or not. I don't know. I do see that there are some brands out there that become really big on Facebook. There's some case studies of these Spanish guys that have the sunglasses brand, and they've sold millions and millions of units. And I look at that, and they've done it all on Facebook. I don't know how they did that. I mean, maybe they have a really big margin and the cost per acquisition is okay for them. But for fast moving consumer goods in the toy sector, where the average price point is between like $12.99 and $19.99, it's pretty hard to do that with Facebook.
Yeah. Thank you. I guess there's a bit of an opportunity if kind of Ryan or Nick want to add any points before we wrap up. By no means you're not obligated to if you have nothing else left to add. Right. Then I will try and kind of wrap things up, because we're pretty much coming to the end of the time. So obviously, thank you very much to the panelists. I was kind of furiously writing down notes if I can kind of try and summarize what I heard. I think obviously the D2C and the Amazon marketplace is still very, very important, and it's a huge force to be reckoned with, and kind of ignore it at your peril. So if you've not got into the D2C space, it's definitely, from what we're hearing today, it's definitely worthwhile doing from a sales perspective. But also obviously one of the things that Ryan was talking about was it's also really useful from a data and a kind of direct relationship with your customer perspective. So it's kind of definitely two sides. So particularly interesting is don't always look at the sales are obviously vital and are paying the bills, but also make sure that you're trying to get some of that insight out from a customer engagement perspective to kind of drive the rest of your business. Also, what I was hearing was it's a lot of work. So to commit to a D2C strategy will often mean retooling, in many sense of the word, your team, your business infrastructure, who you hire, how you hire, how you set up your organization from a sales and a logistics perspective. So it sounds like it's not something that you can just try. It sounds again like it's a bit of a, as Yoda might say, either do or do not. There is no try, because you have to commit. You have to commit fully, because I think if you just try, you're not going to get very far. And some of the things that Nick was talking about from a Amazon perspective and how to get that right from an Amazon perspective just kind of makes us realize that if you just put up a few things on Amazon and sit back and see, will this work or will this not work, that's not going to be an effective trial. You're not going to be able to use that as a valid data point to know whether or not you can scale this business. I think you've just got to go for it and kind of commit quite heavily to it, which is obviously an enormous risk. Very easy for a strategist to say those words, but that seems to be what I'm hearing here. And then lastly, please.
It is possible to start with just one product, for example. So you commit to getting one product well ranked, good reviews, and the logistics for that working, and you can build from there. You don't need to think about it like it's like I need a multi-million euro or dollar or pound investment. You can start small in terms of product, but whichever product you do decide to do, it needs to be done properly, or like I said at the beginning, it doesn't quite get anywhere. We did have Aqua Dragons on Amazon for a few years, and they were just kind of regular until we really made that commitment. So sorry to interrupt.
No, that's a great addition. And then from a perspective, you know, as is always the case with marketing online, there's trial and learning and adapting and going at it again, as is always the case. Particularly right now, this whole marketplace is changing so rapidly that you can't just go, this is my marketing strategy, I'm going to let it go for a few months and come back and see what's happening. You've got to keep right on top of that, because what's happening today might not be happening tomorrow. So you've got to kind of be flexible and adaptable and move very rapidly with those things. So they were my takeouts. Again, unless anyone else has anything else to add, then I'd like to say my thank yous very much to the panelists for your time today.
I want to say one more thing. Is that okay? If my original kind of job many years ago was actually working in advertising, and what I can tell you is absolutely nothing of what I knew back then is useful for what we need to do now. It's changed that much, and it takes a lot of effort to stay up to date. So just another observation. Anyway, thank you very much for inviting me. I really enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful for somebody who's, has a brand and is trying to take decisions, or interested in, FMCG and retail and everything else. So thank you.
Thank you.
For sure, it's been interesting. Thank you so much, Amy, Nick, Ryan. We made it in time, 45 minutes. It's been great counting on you and your expertise. And let's keep the conversation alive. We see you soon in the next Youth and Family Marketing sessions.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.